Well, hello again. It's Monday, or whenever you're watching this, you might not all see it on Monday. And I know everybody's heading out into another crazy week as the world seems to get ever more challenging and ever more complicated and sort of chaotic. And so I hope our reflections continue to help you on this journey. I mentioned this before, and I think just last week, but I hope it's worth repeating. As priests that preach every day, not just Sunday, we very often look for themes. And I think I can speak for Father Dady as well. Themes in the scriptures, and for me particularly in the Gospels. And when they grab us, or at least when they grab me, it's sort of, for me, it's a sign of maybe something that I need to consider a little bit. And the theme that I'm going to discuss here came from Saturday morning's reading and then the gospel that we heard this Sunday. And it's about the sort of scandalous abundance, the scandalous mercy, the scandalous generosity of God. And it is scandalous because it exceeds all human expectations. It's almost too much for us, as I think it is actually too much for us to take in. And one of the reasons that is because we live in a world where scarcity is the mindset, where there's only so much money out there to be had. There's only so much work out there to be had. There's only so much goods out there to be had. There's only so many material things out there to have. And then in addition to that, we see world reports where people are dying from poverty and malnutrition and all these horrible things. And it tends to make human beings grab for what they can and is sort of not quite hoarding, but this nature to consume in a way that secures our lives and secures our future as we continue to gain control, which we know is an illusion. And this idea of scarcity can apply to everything. It can even apply to love. There's only so much love out there to be had, so I have to go out and pursue it, or I have to create some false image of myself so that I can be loved, or I have to manipulate others into loving me because there's only so much love that goes around. And from a world and economic perspective, I think it's definitely beyond this video to address that. But my concern is that this same scarcity mindset enters into the life of the church and then into our vision of who God is. That there's only so much grace to be had. There's only so much faith to be had. There's only so much love of God to be had. Now, outwardly, we would probably never say that. We realize that's not true. But inwardly, I think our disposition tends to lean towards that. And then therefore, if we sort of deep down inside believe that there's only so much grace, love, faith, all these things, hope to be had, then we sort of cling to them and tend to hoard them and keep them for ourselves. And therefore, the church and the individual Christian even begins to close in on themselves. Well, Saturday's morning's gospel reading in this Sunday parable absolutely rail against this. Jesus has nothing to do with the mindset of scarcity. And Saturday's reading, it's Luke 4 through 15, I think. It's about a sower that goes out. We know this parable to sow. And he spreads on the rocks, on the path, on the road, in the thorns, and then finally on good soil. Now, most people interpret that as what's the good soil? But what we miss is how scandalous it would have been for the people listening to that parable at that time to think a farmer just throws seed anywhere. Seed was a commodity at that time, and that would have been absolutely reckless behavior. But hence is the mercy of God. God doesn't just sow grace here and sow grace there. He showers it abundantly. There's no room in the kingdom of heaven for a scarcity mindset. Fast forward to the gospel we just heard this Sunday and you heard me preach on. It's about a landowner that goes out at 6 to bring in day laborers, 9 to bring in day laborers, noon to bring them in, 3, and then at the scandalous hour at 5. And once again, I keep using this word scandalous. It would have been scandalous to them because no landowner in their right mind would have been brought workers in at 5 for 1 hour and then gave them the same wage. That would have been insane. It also would have been insane to think that he didn't rightly calculate how many laborers he needed. So once again, this is the generosity of God. So what does this all mean for us? Well, it's time to challenge that mindset of scarcity at least within the church. The grace of God is everywhere. It's abounding as we speak. Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the much more, as Paul said in Romans. And that grace is available to everybody. And that God is going out hour after hour, inviting people into his vineyard. And that God is spreading the seeds of mercy and grace even as we speak. And then therefore, his disciples of Jesus Christ, we not only receive it, but we are willing to equally share it with others, because we know that the more we share, the more we receive. So it's time to let go of this notion that God's love, mercy, grace, all these things are scarce and they're only in limited proportions. The more we accept this radical outpouring of God's love in the world, the more as Christian disciples will be willing to share it with others, and then maybe begin to invite people back to the church where they can receive in that ultimate sacrament of God's grace. It's time to see the bigger picture, or to begin to enter into the bigger picture of God's grace and mercy. The more I do, the more I'm willing to share it with others, and the better the world becomes. May God's love be with you always. I hope you're staying safe and healthy during these turbulent times, and I hope that I see all of you very, very soon. God bless.